Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. Welcome to another Tactical Insight. It's a preview. We're looking ahead to Arsenal PSG, and we welcome back Graham. It's great to see you. Let's break it down. Let's talk about how Arsenal are going to overturn this, but also looking at what we got right and got wrong as well the other night. But Graham, it's good to have you back, mate.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be back, James, and great to be back for such an important game this week, which really will define our season one.
Before we go into the nuts and bolts of it, are you confident? Are you feeling like Arsenal can do something on Wednesday night?
I do think it's going to be a really difficult job to go over there and win the game. I'll be honest with you. I've watched a lot of PSG over the last few weeks. The games against Liverpool, the games against Villa. They're an exceptional side. And I think the first goal is going to be massive. If we get that goal, I think that we've got a chance then. But if they get the goal, I think it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, it makes me grateful that the away goal rule doesn't exist anymore. I mean, in fairness, we still need to go there and score, but I don't know, it's just never a rule I liked in football, and it makes it a bit clearer, doesn't it? It's quite simply, if they get a second, well, we need to go get two. Well, actually, to be fair, the away goal rule, if we got two, we'd have gone through with that, wouldn't we? So there we go.
It's going to be really difficult, James, because when Liverpool went out there, they lost the game to Liverpool 1-0, but they battered Liverpool. Liverpool couldn't get out there half, and Liverpool sat in a low block and tried to defend the whole game, or they were forced to. Aston Villa, who they also beat in the previous round, went out there and went man-to-man, high-pressed. They gambled and they picked them off with 3 goals. So they are an exceptional team. They've got some great players. Well, one cause of optimism, I think, is that Dembele is struggling with an injury.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and we get Thomas Partey back.
Right, so that is the context. Obviously, Thomas Partey missed the last game. We'll talk about the sort of list of injuries and players who weren't available, because Mikel Arteta highlighted it himself. Yeah, Partey, that's one bit of context. Dembele, who did start the last game, might not be available for this one. There's a supposed hamstring injury, the details of it, and quite how, the extent of it, we don't quite know. Just some other sort of interesting data and context around this game. Arsenal actually created the highest XG, or put together the highest XG in the game against PSG than any of the other 3 semi-finalists. But I talked about this on the Gooniverse, that it was a little bit of a... It's why you can't just take one stat and sort of use it to define everything, because I actually felt of the 4 clubs across the 2 Champions League semi-finals, Arsenal looked the least potent in attack, and I even kind of put them behind Inter Milan in terms of the football they played. So understanding how we create more of what we did well in very small spurts against PSG, something we need to explore, and exploring what needs to be different too. Now, as always, Graham, you sent some fantastic stats, and we put it into a table because we wanted to break down, I think this was with the help of Canon Stats, if I'm not mistaken. We've got down the breakdown of minutes 0 to 25 against PSG, minutes 25 to 70, and then minutes 70 to 90, because it really highlighted that the game had 3 different stages. Now, to be fair, I talked about this on Forever Arsenal as well, straight after, and big up Canon Stats, but it was actually before I saw all this. I did feel that in the first 20 minutes we struggled. We wrestled it back, and then by full time, I was as shocked the game didn't end 3-0 to PSG as I was shocked we didn't win it 2-1. The fact that it even remained 1-0 was kind of like, when you look at how much had happened for the rest of the game. Is that how you felt? Both, how have we not won it, yet actually, it could have got a lot worse. We'll go into the key data in a sec, but it was a game that swung in lots of different ways.
It was. I think the first 20-25 minutes, that's the best football I've seen against us at the Emirates since we've been at the Emirates, and I've seen an awful lot of games at the Emirates, as you know. They are an exceptional, technically gifted footballing team. That first 20-25 minutes, we just couldn't get the ball off them. They kept the ball so well. They play these little triangles and rotations when they play out from the back. They were exposing our unstructured midfield. You've got to remember, we went with a different midfield setup, where Partey not playing was a massive miss, and they were getting at our fullbacks quite easily, and Timber had a right nightmare up against Kvaratskhelia, the Georgian on their left-hand side, our right-hand side, and they scored the goal, which we're going to obviously talk about how we need to try and stop that sort of thing happening. But they also had another great chance. David Raya made an exceptional save at 1-0. I don't think people realise how important that save was. They could have been 2 up in the first...
The Doué shot, when he got inside
in the first 20 minutes. And then what we're going to talk about is obviously we needed to do something in the game, and give Arteta credit. He did 2 things in the game. He tweaked the way we pressed from a 4-4-2 back to a 4-2-3-1, which I know we're going to talk about. And then he changed the positioning of Mikel Merino. Basically, Merino, we were struggling to play out round their press. They were like out passing us with incisive, sharp passing, but they also were pressing onto us and we couldn't get the ball into midfield. And that was because Arteta identified the positioning Merino was too far forward and asked him to come back into midfield. Yeah. So there was 2 tweaks in that game, and then slowly but surely we got a foothold in the game. And for that second 50 minutes or whatever it was, the second part of the game we're going to analyse, it's about 50 minutes. We were the better team, had completed more passes than them, had more shots at goal than them, had more shots on target than them, and I think we found a way that we can beat them in a way that we've talked about it this morning. We agree that pace and power, our midfield, is the way to beat them. They go man to man in midfield, and if they play man to man, they're very good at popping off passing, technical passing, but they maybe struggle in the duels against physicality. Yeah. And that's what I think we need. That's our strength, and we need to use that in the second leg. And then just finally coming back to that final 20 minutes, as you said, the difference between us and them is they had gifted players, top forwards to come off the bench. Yeah. We had nothing to freshen up. Our players tired. They brought on reinforcements. We were then chasing the game. So we're going to leave gaps at the back, and they nearly put the game to bed with those 2 chances.
They injected some life into it. And this is how the stats breakdown looks. I mean, obviously that first goal came in the first 25 minutes for PSG. Arsenal didn't score. There was no other goals, of course, throughout the rest of the, what's left, 75 minutes or no? Terrible.
65 minutes.
Am I okay? Last 65 minutes. There we go. It's been a long weekend. Obviously, PSG had 4 shots to Arsenal's 1 in that first 25 minutes, but by minutes 25 to 70, Arsenal had 7 shots to PSG's 1 in the last 20 minutes. PSG had 5 shots to Arsenal's 2. The possession swung funnily enough, only in the last 20 minutes, and Arsenal actually have more possession than PSG. But as you could see, from only having 28% of the ball in the first 25 minutes, Arsenal wrestled back some control on the ball. Final third entries, Arsenal started to take control after 25 minutes in which the final third was entered 9 times by PSG, but 20 and 18 was an accumulated 38. Just want to prove to you I can do some mental maths. Above PSG's 15 in what was minute 25 onwards to the rest of the game. Passes per defensive action from 9.6 for Arsenal to 14.8 to then 5.0. PSG, you can see their numbers there. But what do you think that's about, Graham? The fact that we actually lowered our pass per defensive action in the period of the game that we were most successful. Is that because we had more of the ball, so there was kind of a less urgency to try win it back? Or, dare I say, and I'm going to ask this question too, did Arsenal recognise that we were just chasing them all over the pitch and actually it was futile, it was completely pointless. We couldn't get near them. So actually being more patient, waiting for them to almost make an error in possession, waiting for them to actually go for that more penetrative pass, even though it took longer for us to win the ball back, was actually a better tactic for them picking them off and trying to get some control of the game.
I think when we came out, I think the pressing was not coordinated. That's what led to their goal. I think Martinelli doesn't jump onto his man quick enough, for example. But we did press high at the start, and we did try to press aggressively, but they were just playing around us and we were chasing shadows. I think what Arteta recognised, we had to be a bit more controlled in our pressing. And I think when Odegaard moved back from the 10 role to pick up Betika, who was like sitting as a single pivot in front of their back 3 in build-up, that's when, with just Trossard as the lone person from the front, I think the press then become slightly more restrained, not in that period. It became more measured, not sort of as intense. And I think we recognised, then, that if we go too gung-ho with the pressing, they're just going to pick us off. I think we needed to get control into the game, and that's why he moved Odegaard back.
Let's annotate it, because I think it was so interesting the way they use their players. Enrique's a top manager, isn't he? I mean, really good manager. And you're right to point out that Arsenal would normally want to press as a 4-4-2.
Yep.
But I think there was a couple issues. Partey not playing meant I think that we just lacked real kind of understanding. Rice is really good at basically doing the job of 2 players. Yeah. He can, if he's playing left 8, let's imagine Marino's Partey, he is happy to step onto a Marquinhos and be able to get back onto a Neves, for example. I'm just making a point that his legs allow him to sort of basically just cover so many positions. But he had to play a slightly more disciplined role in the 6, because if he steps forward too much, then there's literally no real cover behind him. But you make the point that this is always the intention, 4-4-2 press, but we mixed it up. And the point you were making was that this, show it in blue, this trio here of Mendes, Pacho and Marquinhos in possession, if we just give Marquinhos the ball, is the reason why. Essentially, as a 2 pressing onto a 3, we got outnumbered there, and then we didn't have the numbers when they flooded the midfield too. So, 4-2-3-1, explain that again for us.
Yeah, I think we started off in a 4-4-2. We went 4-2-3-1 because what they do is you've set up there on the screen. They've got their 3 defenders across. They build in a 3. Vitina is a single pivot there, but I think where they were hurting us was the position of Dembele. If you highlight him across the front 3, and Neves, because what they do really well, Neves and Dembele switch positions. So Dembele would be playing up front, but he would drift into the middle there. Neves would go forward into his position. So they would like swap positions. So if you move Neves, forward into where Dembele back and Neves forward, right?
Yeah,
and what they then do is Hakimi is the 3 across the middle. So he drifts forward.
Yeah.
So they build up in a 3-1-3-3, which becomes a 3-1.
So you're saying something more like this, sorry. Yeah, there we go. So Dembele and Neves
they're looking to switch positions. So when Neves goes forward, Dembele will drop into the middle to receive the pass. So when they play out around your press, you've got all the players up high there with the 2. They play it into into the midfield there, and Dembele is often not picked up, not tracked, because Saliba will be marking Dembele, but Saliba's not going to come out into midfield. He just held his position. So that's where they were having joy. The way they used Dembele was very clever, switching with Neves. Ruiz and Hakimi stretched the play on either side, and they've sort of like got a 3-1-3-3 there when they build up. And when Dembele drops in, of course, it's a 3-1-4-2. So that's where we were having problems, because they were playing round our front 2, and then finding spaces to drive at our defence.
But then Odegaard was asked to do a different role. Was it about stopping Vitinha?
Well, yeah. I think Marino is crucial here, because Marino was forward, obviously, but Marino was asked to sort of drop back into that. So Marino's job now, Odegaard would go where Marino was, but he was really on Vitinha, so you just drop back slightly from his position, it become a 4-2-3-1 there, and then Marino would drop back, and his job really was to track either Neves or Dembele, depending on whoever came into that midfield to pick the ball up. So it was like repositioning Odegaard, repositioning Marino to stop the way that they were able to play. When they play round us, they couldn't play through us so much, because we altered the way we pressed. So that is why the passes per defensive action got higher, because we didn't have so many players forward to press. But we set off more a little bit and got a bit more control. And once we got that control, stopped them building up the way they wanted to build up, then we could start playing in our 4-2-3-1. And it's set up then to use our left-hand side, James, because what you see now is Marino is sort of deeper. Lewis Skelly can now drive from his position, and then Martinelli can sort of like get in behind Hakimi, and that's what happened. As we started to get control in the game, we started to expose the gaps behind Hakimi, and there was that one great chance where Skelly drove forward and played Martinelli in, and he got in, and Marquinhos came across. Of course, it was a lot of people thought it was an easy chance, but he had so little the goal to aim at, and Donnarumma is a big keeper. I think he did as well as he could there. It was a good save. But we started to then put pressure on them. We started to get on the ball more. And what happens in football is when you're popping off passes left, right and centre, you're confident. But when you notice the opposition then adjust and starting to get more of the ball and ask questions of you, you then become less offensively strong. And as a result of that, I thought PSG recognised that Arsenal were coming onto them a bit more. And I think Enrique said that in his press conference. As a result of that, I think they then dropped more into a lower block in that first half, and at the start of the second half, when we had more control in the game, and they weren't sort of like popping off so many passes and creating so many openings as they were in that first 25 minutes.
I also felt that their kind of constant alternating of, so for example, you got their front 3, right? And that's quite a standard modern way of playing with your front 3, with your wingers really high and wide. And because Mendes and Hakimi, they can invert, but they don't invert in the way, for example, we use Lewis Skelly, Timber, White and Calafiori. They invert in a way where actually they can be bombing on into these positions too. Yeah. And sometimes Vitinha, Neves and Ruiz, almost like a 2-3-5, but they're also happy to sort of just sit and let Hakimi make these runs and Mendes make these runs. And then sometimes Kvaratskhelia could tuck in, Doué could tuck in, and Hakimi and Mendes could hold the touchline. And I think it was really difficult for Saka and Martinelli to constantly know who to track and where to track them, because if Hakimi is tucking inside, then Martinelli's following him in, Doué's there, but then Lewis Skelly's being pulled out wide. I mean, there were constant rotations of movement from the PSG players. It was really, really fascinating to watch. I also think you're right that Mikel Merino, you talked about it tactically there. I think as well, I don't know if this shows tactical insight, but I think his heart and like willingness to just drive Arsenal back into it and to grab some sort of control of the game was a part of it too in that first half. Rice in the second half I think showed that more. But the two of them were just like, right, we're in the wars here, and they just started putting their body on the line and getting more tackles and more, just like kind of getting the body in the way of passes. And then that kind of unsettled PSG, and suddenly we were able to play a little bit. I think a lot of it was just a bit of grit and just wanting it. I think Marino and Rice kind of set the tone for that. I think with Marino up front in the next game, I think that's what happened. Yeah. And we will now look ahead to that game. Yeah. But I think that with Partey in there too was a big part. There's Lewis Skelly as well. That was just him saying, give me the ball, I will make it happen. And I think it was those players that just physically went, let's just try and run all over them. That was a big boost.
2 points I make on what you've analysed there. With the way their fullbacks play, and you saw it in the Aston Villa second leg, both their goals against Aston Villa, when they went 2 up at Villa Park, came from their fullbacks. And from one fullback passing into the other. They play their fullbacks almost like Tottenham play their fullbacks.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said it.
The only difference is that PSG are a football team and Tottenham are not. But the reality is, they do that. They do invert up high, don't they? Yeah. They use their wingers to sort of like stretch the pitch, and they've got really top-class wingers in those wide areas. I've never seen Timber struggle with a wide player as much as he did in this game. It was a good battle, but he really did struggle against the Georgian in this game. The second point I want to make is the adaptability of Mikel Merino, who, let's face it, this season has been criticised a lot by many in the fan base. Yeah. But his adaptability, knowing what he's got to do, has been really important for Arteta. Yeah. And in this game, James, he was playing too far forward. I think he came back really because we were struggling to play out in that first half. A number of times Saliba was on the ball with nowhere to go and no one to pass to. That's because him and Odegaard does drop back, I know, but Merino was too far forward, so they couldn't sort of get the ball into midfield. And the other thing is, obviously, we mentioned about missing Thomas Partey. Declan Rice, fantastic footballer, great at driving forward, roaming, and he did, I think, too much of this in this game, I think, at times. Left us a little bit, and I'm not criticising Declan, he had a barnstorming game as he normally does. But I thought, the difference between him and Partey in that 6 is, when our centre-half split and Partey gets the ball, he's able to receive it, he can turn, he can go left, he can go right, and he's got this ability, he's so comfortable on either side, and he just take the ball and just drive forward if the opportunity. He can drive past a midfielder just like that. I don't think Rice can do that. Rice more, when he receives it in the 6, is looking to play it off left or right. But Partey is a different dimension, different animal at number 6. And I think we missed him through that. And as a result of that, we were struggling to get it into the second phase. And so what Arteta asked Mourinho to do was to drop back into midfield, to be available to receive the ball from either Kivior or Saliba when they were struggling to play out, and you saw it quite a lot in the first half. So that's the 2 points I want to make on what you were discussing there.
Now, I know a lot of you watching will be thinking, okay, great. I mean, we've looked back a lot at this last game, but what do we do differently? What do we do better? That's the kind of the big thing we want to tackle in this. The reality is, and sorry, I'm not trying to kill our own video here when I say this, I think a lot of it is Partey coming back in and actually just raising the level of what we saw on Tuesday night. I don't think Arsenal need to completely reinvent what they need to do tactically. I don't think they need to come up with anything crazy, anything special here. PSG were brilliant. Arsenal were not great on the night, and actually we could have won. We didn't. I think we could also have lost by more, but we could have won. For the chances we had, that wouldn't have been a crazy outcome. We certainly could easily have come out without the defeat. So I think Arsenal need to do a bit of the same. And I'll go to that in more detail, but Partey really is the only returning player here, because these are the players that Mikel Arteta mentioned who weren't available to play. Tomiyasu's a defender, Calafiori's a defender, Gabriel's a defender. Jorginho in midfield, I think he would have played if he were fit. Partey, of course, is returning, but he wasn't available for the home game, nor was or is Kai Havertz for this one, and Gabby Jesus too. So if we go through the expected starting 11s, and if you bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to open this up in front of me one more time. So I'm expecting, if Dembele's not fit, I think they'll go for Bradley Barcola and go for another more similar profile up front.
Good player.
Yeah, I think there's every chance they also play with Kvaratskhelia as the false 9. I just think he's really suited to that role. And Barcola comes in. Cool. Arsenal, I think, will bring out Trossard. I think they will bring in Thomas Partey. There we go, I went too far. So let's get Marino up front. Let's get Rice in the left 8. And let's get Thomas Partey in there. Would you agree that this is probably going to be the 11?
Yes, I do. And I think that puts players back in their best positions in this team. Partey is our best number 6. Him missing was a massive miss. It gives Declan the ability to actually play higher, where he's in my opinion, does most. He's been brilliant this season for us. And we saw in that second half how brilliant he is when he's able to sort of like drive and roam and drive with the ball forward. So I think it was Odegaard played him through with Hakimi out of position. He literally run 20, 30, 40 yards up the pitch. He ran straight through their midfield. I think we're going to have to run through their midfield at times to create openings on Wednesday night. And he got up and played Leonardo Trossard in, who had a fantastic shot. I thought that was an outstanding save by Donnarumma. Really did. But that just showed where Rice is at his best, and he can play there if we've got a number 6. And then Marino back up top gives us that physicality when we play into the box, which we didn't have with him playing at 8, because Trossard can't offer what he does. So I think we've got players, just a simple tweak with Partey coming back, that makes our team stronger and gives us a better chance of winning in Paris.
I think there's a few ways to play PSG here. Let me start with yellow. In yellow, I just want to highlight players like Marino, Partey, Rice, Lewis Skelly, Jurrien Timber, Bukayo Saka, William Saliba. These players, I think, are the ones that can get on top of PSG physically. They can be stronger than than the players in the individual battles on the PSG side of the field. I think they can just impose themselves and be a threat from set pieces. I think they can just generally be like, I don't know what you're doing with the ball. We can physically get on top of you. We can run through you. And then I think you've got players that we'll highlight in green. Kivior, brilliant left foot. Martinelli with his, shouldn't have used the green, but oh well. Marte with his raw pace, and Odegaard, because we know he's got a magic pass in him. They're the players that it's like, can you give us a bit of craft? Mainly Martinelli and Odegaard. Look, and Saka too, right? He can provide that. But I'm just saying, those 3 players you're looking at more in a different way to kind of contribute in terms of stopping PSG. Now, I want to put forward a theory to you here. I'm just going to get the Arsenal players in a certain system. If we just move PSG players up the pitch, bear with me a second. Okay. So you've got a front 4 there with Odegaard, Marino. Now, do you remember last season in the run-in, Arsenal actually opted for more of a 4-4-2 in build-up? We didn't invert the full-back as much because it was actually Kivior at the time. And we played with Rice a little bit closer to Jorginho, and it was Havertz who was playing alongside Odegaard in the sort of front 2. So we were more 4-4-2 or 4-2-4 if you like. I've been wondering, and I wondered this in the home leg, but we didn't do it. I'm wondering whether Arsenal are going to deploy something a bit more like this, where Odegaard drops into build-up, because that's where the space is. Lewis Skelly tucks in. We saw him have some joy in the first leg, tucking in, inverting. And Rice will continue to bomb up and down the field. And you'll really end up with Rice and Marino as your 2 players who are sort of pushing forward the most. Now, the reason I say this is, A, because Rice from that left 8 has been playing almost up front most of the time when we were on the ball. He's almost been making those runs. Marino is always going to sort of float and sort of get onto things at the back post and try to be a presence. Saka and Martinelli doesn't need explaining. But I could see Odegaard in trying to find space. I could see him dropping out of where Vitinha, Ruiz and Neves will be a little bit to try to get more involved. And I could see Lewis Skelly saying, give me the ball because I can run through a Neves, I can run through Vitinha. Now, I know this might feel like it's quite a jump away from what Arsenal typically do. But Odegaard, Partey, Lewis Skelly is a three there. We've done that before. We did it away at Palace. And Rice and Marino being two of our highest players up the pitch isn't actually that surprising. It's just weird because you're talking about 2 8s almost in two striking positions. Do you think Arsenal at times could do something like this in possession, or am I going crazy?
I don't mind that. I really don't. I think Odegaard coming deeper, as long as he's looking to combine with Saka up high, which I think will be important on that right-hand side, because Mendy is a top left-back. I mean, he shut Salah out of 2 games, and Saka didn't get much joy out of him. I think Saka needs some help there, and they will double up on Saka. So I think Odegaard will come deep. He has been coming deep quite a lot. He came deep a lot on Saturday night. I don't mind that with Rice in that position, because it depends how I think PSG play. Because one thing, we know that we're a goal behind. They're a goal in front. What is going to be their mentality? Are they going to think, well, we're going to come out and play our football, play technically gifted football like we know we can play with our midfielders and try and kill it with a second goal? Or are they going to be slightly more cautious in that we don't want to give Arsenal too much space? With Partey back now, they've got their players back in their position. So I think we're looking at it from what Arsenal could do. I think also we have to factor in what Enrique's thinking and what PSG might do, because I noticed, I thought they're better when they're trying to play their football. As they did at Anfield and as they did in Paris in the 2 Liverpool games. Against Villa, when they sat off because the game was won, Villa started to physically overpower them in ways that we think we can, and then they had some joy, didn't they? So I don't know if it depends how they set up, but in terms of the way we play, we normally build up in a 3-2-5, but I don't mind that with Rice further forward, Odegaard in that shape, and Lewis Skelly using his pace to pick his moments to drive past his midfielder, because I think they go man-to-man in midfield, James. Their midfielders will pick up our midfield man-to-man. So we've got to get Lewis Skelly into the midfield, because that gives a problem for the right-sided attacker. Is he going to go there, or does the midfielder come across? And what I think we need to do is, because they are technically gifted on the ball, I don't think they're so good off the ball. With the pace and power we've got, we need players who can beat a man on a dribble, because I think that they, as gifted as they are, they're not physically strong. And I think if you can power pass and move their lines around, that's where you could get the openings, because that's what we did in the first leg.
We need runners,
We need runners. We need runners from midfield to pull their back line out of shape, and we need to get Saka and Martinelli in behind. If we can do that, I think we might then have some joy. But in answer to what you said, the way you've set it up there, I don't mind if Arsenal build up like that.
I just think, let's imagine Kai Havertz were fit and he was playing in that position. We've talked about this diamond before, the Cruyff sort of system and all that. So the idea that Rice bombs forward and Marino drifts out to that right side, isn't that surprising? The idea that Odegaard tucks in next to Partey and Lewis Skelly, we've done that before. None of this is that strange. I just wonder, and I'm surprised we didn't see him more in the first leg. I thought Marino would push forward nearer to Trossard and actually still play as a kind of auxiliary striker, but we didn't really see much of that. My next question for you is going to be, and here's a controversial one, would you be tempted to do this? Sorry, Martin. Take him out the team.
I know you're going to ask me now.
And go, yeah, I know. Would you be tempted for anything like this? Something a little bit more 4-4-2 with Trossard and Marino? I mean, how does that look? Do you have Marino sort of floating in Odegaard's position, maybe off the ball? I don't know, but would you be tempted on the basis that Trossard's kind of got more match-winning moments in him than Odegaard, who's been in really poor form? Though I think we both agree he was kind of given a lot of. I think he was a bit scapegoated on Saturday. To be honest, I think a lot of players were poor. Is that tempting?
Is that what you're saying? Would you be tempted to go with that from the start? Is that what you're now asking me?
Maybe.
The answer is no.
In game, 60th minute, we need a goal.
Look, if we're struggling in the game, obviously you need to try something different. I'm not against trying something different, but I don't see how that works. I just think as Odegaard wasn't great against PSG. He got a lot of criticism, but I think he's become the new scapegoat for a lot of the fan base.
I agree with that.
And I think it's over the top. I thought he was better on Saturday, although he faded second half. But I just think him picking the ball up, I just think that you're taking away. You're using 2 forward players there. I know Trossard can drop back, but I just don't. Or Marino can drop back, but I just don't. I don't. Then you're just going back to virtually what we had last week with Marino dropping back to midfield, Trossard up top. But we haven't got Odegaard.
Yeah.
So we just swapped a Partey for Odegaard. And Rice further on. No, I don't think that works, James. I think if we're in trouble in the game, I'm not against changing something. If you're going to maybe think about switching someone into Odegaard's position, I think Wanyeri, as young as he is and as little football as he's played, is the most obvious fit.
Yeah.
But not to start. I think what maybe Arteta's been guilty of, maybe not taking his captain off sooner if he's not producing. I think that maybe that is something that he might think about.
So that's a big one. The subs is a big one. I think the subs came far
We need
too
something
late.
we need something off the bench, and as you say, the subs need to come on earlier to be given a chance to make an impression.
I think the subs came on way too late against PSG in the first leg, and I think they actually came on way too late against Bournemouth too.
Yeah.
Now what I've done, just put Odegaard back in. I agree he'll start, and I think he should start. I was purely asking the question. But there are, if we need a goal, I stress if we need a goal, there are 3 changes I want to see. One of them is Odegaard for Nwaneri. You're absolutely right about that one. Where is it? Here we go. Nwaneri. I think just because he can get into those areas and win your game. Martinelli off for Trossard is one of them too. And then the other one is Timber off for Ben White, because I think Ben White is a better overlapping option. And I think he offers more in terms of creativity.
I tell you what, I'll be worried about Ben White against...
Oh yeah, but I'm just talking if we need a goal with 20 minutes to go.
Because at that point he's not right yet. We saw on Saturday.
Of course he's not.
He's not back yet. And so I'll be worried in this game against a winger of that quality.
I know, but if we get to the 70th minute, and at that point we've played what, you know... My mental must have been terrible. We played 150 minutes of football against PSG across 2 legs, and we haven't scored. But at this point, I don't really care about stopping their wingers anymore. I'm thinking we need to get players on that pitch who can do something. Saka has moments. Nwaneri has moments. Marino needs one chance, one shot. He hits the target. He always asks a question. Declan Rice can produce a moment. Trossard for Martinelli might not have that same blistering pace, but he produces way more moments in bigger games too. Lewis Skelly, love you. Tierney on, just to give us something of an overlap. Maybe then you got him coming on the outside, Trossard can tuck inside nearer to goal. I want to see Arteta be brave. If it gets to the 60th minute, 65th, and we don't look like scoring, we're not asking a question, of course if we're on top of them, because what we can't do what Emery did, which was Villa were all over PSG, and then he made the change.
He made the wrong
3-2.
changes.
He brought Rashford off, whatever, and it killed their momentum. So don't get me wrong, if we're all over them, if they are really struggling, then you keep that group on the pitch, and you know what, I'll understand. I'll go, fair play.
Listen, James, if this is still 0-0 after 60, 65 minutes, we're still in the game. I think if we
but
lose,
if we're not doing anything,
if we're not looking at scoring, but I think
you've got to roll
I think we need to win this game. We've got to think about what we've got to do well to get back in the game and to win the game. We talked about using the power and the pace of our midfield to move them around to try and get some openings. I think you've also got to think about how we press, because we've got to make sure we kill their fluidity. And remember, they came out at the Emirates and started really well. We can't afford to let them start very well in Paris. We need to come out with the right intensity and take control of the game early on to force a few doubts into their minds. So and that part of that is to stop them from playing out the way they played out. So we need to get the press right. So do we go? We talked about the way we sat off a little bit in that period when we wrestled control back. Do we get really brave in this game and go more man-to-man from the front
I don't think
and push really high? Or do we sit back more in a low block and pick our moments?
I think we learned from that first 20 at the Emirates. We get into a real low block, we frustrate them, we make them look boring, all these little passes cool, but we just sit in a really narrow shape, defend everything well, get a foothold in the game, then start to build. I don't think we should go
The only problem is that's what Liverpool did. Admittedly, they were forced back by PSG, but they just couldn't get out. Albeit, they're in a low block, they're defending, and Alisson ended up making loads of saves to keep them in the game. But I think the danger is if you get too far back, you then struggle to get out and up
I
the pitch.
agree, but I think it's our strength. I think Arsenal have shown many times, whether it be at Anfield, the Etihad, this particular Arsenal group, Real Madrid, they've shown that they can build off a platform. Liverpool want to be on the ball, they want to be protagonists, they want to be feeding their forwards. Arsenal are very happy and have been under Mikel Arteta to not have the ball and then start to settle, and then they string a few passes. I think we're very good at doing that, and I think that is something that Arsenal.
There is, of course, one other thing that I would want to factor in here. So we talked about sort of trying to win in the midfield, using our pace and power to get past their technicians. We talked about sort of like stopping their fluidity in their build-up, get the press right. When we press them, and to be pressing better than them. The other thing I think we can do is I think they're vulnerable and weak from set plays.
Yes.
And the point I want to make, I checked this out, they've got 28 chances teams have created against them in the Champions League from set plays this season. Of the top sides, they've got the worst record at defending set plays. We are good at set plays, albeit we haven't been so much lately. We've been conceding more from set plays. But if we can get the delivery right into the box, take Donnarumma out of it. So, for example, we don't want to just float it in for him to come and take it. Our corners will always be a problem for them. And we've got to remember, we did score as narrowly offside at the Emirates. So we can get the delivery right. Marino's height, Saliba's height, Partey's height even, in the box, we can maybe unsettle them a bit in the air. I think set plays is another opportunity where if we can just get the right balls into the box, Saka and Declan Rice, when they deliver it, and we can get on the end of it, we can have some joy at set plays.
Yeah, and I'd even add to that crosses to the back post, to the likes of Marino and Rice.
Yeah.
We can get on top of them aerially, so let's hope we do. Everyone, those are our thoughts. A big thanks to Graham. It's good to have you back, mate. Thanks for all the research, all the data there. Let us know what you think. What would you do in terms of the 11? What do you think in terms of subs, depending on how the game's going? The Odegaard debate, does Waneri deserve more minutes? Trossard or Martinelli or Marino? Who makes your front three? Let us know everything in the comment section below. Check out all the previews and more on AFTV. And of course, we'll be live from Box Park, reacting to every kick of a ball as Arsenal go to Paris, trying to make a little bit of history and get themselves to a Champions League final, their first since 2006. Everyone, big thanks for joining us. Come on, Arsenal, you got this. We can do this. If anyone can pull out a plan, Mikel, I'm trusting you can. See you soon.
Calling all Kenyan football fans, the AFTV watch party is going down. Liverpool versus the Arsenal on the 11th of May from 4 p.m. at Ponka 254 next to the Two Rivers Mall. Me and Cecil are hosting, bringing the heat, the banter, non-stop vibes, big screen, live entertainment, sizzling nyama, choma, and one legendary party. Powered by Betika, Kenya Airways, Steam and Serena Hotels. Don't miss out. Be there. Don't be there just hearing about it. Take part in it.